Welcome everyone to part 4 of this tutorial series where we're creating this Sci-Fi Mech robot in Blender. So in the last part we had modeled the body and the backpack of the robot, and in this part we are going to be modeling the hips and then modeling the upper legs. As I mentioned in the other parts, if you'd like to help support me and this channel, then you can purchase the project files for this tutorial on my Gumroad store and my Patreon page, and checking out my Gumroad store and Patreon page is a great way to help support me so I can keep on making Blender tutorials and content. And then just one more thing before we continue this part, I wanted to thank this video's sponsor, Blender Grid. Blender Grid is an easy to use render farm specifically designed for Blender. I've used the service and I highly recommend it. Upload your Blender file or a zip file with the blend file and textures. You can change the render settings on the website before rendering. Blender Grid will let you know the cost before you start the render. You can even choose when you want the render to finish if you're on a tight deadline. While it renders, you can check the rendered frames to make sure everything is rendering properly. Once it finishes, just download the files and compile the frames in a video editor. Use the link in the description to get $20 of render credit on your first render. Alright, so let's start by making the hip joints. So we're going to be having some joints right here which are kind of going to swivel back and forth, and this way he can kind of walk and turn around. And then we're going to be modeling the upper legs, which are going to kind of come back here. They're going to go this way, and then in the other parts we'll model the rest of the legs. So I'm going to press Shift C, and Shift C is going to center the 3D cursor into the center of the scene. And I'm doing that because when we add objects, they're going to be added wherever the 3D cursor is. And I want it to be in the center so that I can mirror it over to the other side with the mirror modifier. So I'm going to press Shift A, and we're going to go to Mesh, and I'm going to add a circle. And then I don't want to move the circle in object mode. I just want to press Tab to go into edit mode, and then I can press G to grab, and I can move the circle over. Now real quick, I'm going to press Escape to undo that because I want to actually go right here and turn off the snap feature. In the other part we had the snap feature turned on, so I'm just going to turn that off. So make sure you are in edit mode before you move the object. And I'm now going to press G to grab, and let's bring this over on the x-axis. And why I'm bringing this over in edit mode is so that the origin point stays in the center, and that way when we add the mirror modifier it'll be mirrored over to the other side. So I can now press S to scale. Let's scale this down, and then I want to rotate it over, so I'm going to press R to rotate. Let's rotate it on the y-axis, and then I can type in 9, 0 and enter to rotate that over. And then I'm going to tab to go back to object mode, and I want to give it the mirror modifier and also the bevel modifier. So I'm going to copy the modifiers from this object to this object. So you can click right over here on the modifier properties to preview the modifiers. So I'm first going to select this object, then I'm going to hold down the Shift key and select this object last. Then I'm going to press Control L, and I want to go right down here and copy the modifiers. So the modifiers from this object are copied to this object, and you can see now it's mirroring over to the other side. So let's press 1 on the numpad for front view, and that way we can preview the background reference image. And I'm going to tab to go back to edit mode. So I can press G to grab. Let's bring this back on the x-axis. I can also press S to scale, and we're going to bring this down, and G to grab, and I'm going to move it up here, and I'm just going to fit it to that hip joint. Bring it inside the body, and then hold down the Z button and go into the wireframe so I can just bring that inside there. So I'm now going to click right up here to go to the vertex select because I want to extrude this out. So I'm going to press E to extrude. Click with your mouse wheel, constrain it to the x-axis and stick it there. And then I can press E to extrude again. Again, click and hold with your mouse wheel to constrain it to the x-axis and drop it there. And then I can press S to scale, and I'm going to scale that down. Alright, and then I'm going to press 3 on the numpad for side view, make sure that looks good. In the reference image on the side view, we're actually previewing a different object because we are previewing the other joint of the upper leg, so that isn't going to be very helpful. If I press 7 on the numpad for top view, you can see that's the object we're previewing, so I'm just going to go back to the front view so I can see that. Alright, now I actually want to make this smaller, so I'm going to navigate over here, hold down the Z button, and go back to the solid view. So I want to give this some thickness, so I'm going to press E to extrude, and then S to scale, and I'm going to scale that down, and just scale it down about that far. Then I want to bring it back, so I'm going to press E to extrude, click with your mouse wheel, constrain it to the X, and we're just going to bring that into the body. Alright, and then the normals need to be recalculated. I can just tell that the shading looks weird, so double tap the A key to to select everything, and I can press Shift-N to recalculate the normals. And then if we tab to go to object mode, I can use the object context menu and just shade that object smooth. All right, so that's looking pretty good. Now I do actually want this object to be moved over a little bit. If I press 3 on the numpad for side view and then hold down the Z button and go over into wireframe, I want this to be aligned up with this circle. And why that is because I want the joint to look like it's rotating properly, and I don't want there to be any wobble when the joint is rotating. So just make sure you are in object mode and you have this joint object selected. I'm going to press G to grab, and then I'm going to bring this over on the y-axis and just try to get it about in the center. So just place it right about there. And it doesn't have to be exact because we are going to be using this object right here, and we're going to duplicate it to make the other object. So we will base the location of the next object from this object. But I just want to get it pretty close to the reference, so just go to side view and make sure that looks pretty good around that circle there. All right, let's go back to the solid view, and right in here I want to create that joint. So the hips are going to rotate sideways. If I press 7 on the numpad for top view, this object right here, this is the upper leg, and so it's going to rotate out like this. It's going to rotate sideways. So right here we're going to need a joint to have it rotate. If I press 1 on the numpad to go to front view, you can see there is the joint, so it's going to rotate right there. So we already have an object which is very similar to the shape of that object, and that is this object right here, because this joint is very similar to the joint that's going to be right down here. So I can actually just select this object and I can duplicate it and use it as the base for this joint. So with this object selected, I'm going to press 1 on the numpad to go to front view. Then I'm going to press Shift-D to duplicate, and let's bring this down on the Z-axis. And then I'm going to press the Tab key to go into edit mode, hold down the Z button, go into wireframe so I can actually preview that. I'm going to press the A key to select everything, and I can press G to grab, bring it there. S to scale, we're going to scale it down, and then I want to rotate it, so hit R to rotate, and I want to type in 90 and enter to rotate it by 90 degrees. And I can press G to grab, and I'm going to stick it right there, and it's about the right size, so you could scale it down a little bit, but I think that's a pretty good size. And press 3 on the numpad for side view, and I just want to make sure that it's about in the center there, so you can move it over if it needs to be moved over. I think I will move it over a little bit, just so that it's in the center there. All right, and then I'll press period on the numpad to zoom into it. I can hold down the Z button and go back into the solid view, and there's all these extra sci-fi details here that I really don't want, so I'm going to press the A key to deselect everything, and then I can hover my mouse over this object and press L. That will select the linked vertices, and then I just want to delete everything else. So I can invert the selection by pressing Control I. Control I will invert the selection, and then I can just press the X key, and we just want to delete the vertices. Let's press Control S again to save. All right, so that's what I want. I'm now going to press 1 on the numpad to go to front view. I can press the A key. That's going to select everything in that object's edit mode. And I just want to duplicate it and put it down here, because if you look right here, you can see we have 2 of them, one over here and one over here. So I just want to duplicate this and stick it down here. So I'm going to press Shift-D to duplicate. Hit Z to bring it down on the Z-axis and just stick it right there. All right, navigate up here and you can see how that is looking. And just make sure it fits inside that circle. All right, now if I press 1 on the numpad again and zoom in here, you can see there is another joint right there, because this is only half the joint, but I want to rotate it around. So what I'm going to do is go to the face select, and then I'm just going to select this face right here, hold down the shift key and select this face right here. So I now want to duplicate these faces and make them their own object. So I'm going to press Shift-D to duplicate, but then I can just right click so they stay where they are. Then I can press the P key and I'm going to separate by the selection. So the selection is going to be its own object. So I can tab to go back to object mode and just select this object. And it might be kind of hard to select. You can see it's kind of hard to select. So if you hold down the Z button, go into the wireframe, you can kind of click right there and that's going to select it. All right, so I'll go back to solid view. So I want to rotate this joint around. So I'm going to tab into edit mode, and the center of the joint where the joint rotates is going to be right here, because this is half of a circle. And so that half circle is where it's going to rotate. So what I can do is I can go right here to the edge select, and then I'm going to select this edge edge, hold down the Shift key and select this edge. So I can now hold down the Shift S button. We're going to go to cursor to selected and let go. And that way this 3D cursor is going to be in the very center there. So it's going to be in the center of where the joint is going to rotate. So I can now press the A key to select everything. And I want to rotate this around by the 3D cursor. So I'm going to click right here on the transform pivot point. I'm going to click on the 3D cursor and then I can press R to rotate. Let's rotate this on the Z axis and I want to rotate it all the way around. So I'm going to type in 180 for 180 degrees and then hit enter. All right. And then you can see there's some flickering and that's just because it's overlapping. It's overlapping with the other face. So I can press S to scale and let's scale it down on the Z axis just a tiny little bit so that it's not overlapping. All right. That's pretty good. We can click right back up here and let's change it to the median point, which is the default. All right, so I can now just fill faces in here and then extrude it out. So what I'm going to do is press 1 and 1 is going to go to the vertex select and I want to fill faces here. So I can press F3 and F3 is going to bring up the search and I can search for the bridge edge loops. You can click on the bridge edge loops or you can also just press Control E and then it's this third one right here, the bridge edge loops. That is going to bridge the edges. So there was the same amount of edges up here as there was down here, and so it knew just to fill faces all in there. All right, so I can now go right here to the face select and I'm just going to select this face and then I want to extrude it out. So I'm going to press the 1 on the numpad, that'll go to the front view, and then I can press E and we're going to extrude that out and just stick it there, and I'm going to stick it a little bit too far, a little bit farther, so it's actually going to go into this other circular object that we will add. All right, and then I don't need this face here because that's just going to go inside the other object, so I can press X to delete and we can just delete the faces. And then again, the shading is a bit weird, so let's just press the A key and then I can press Shift N. Shift N will recalculate the normals. And I can tab to go back to object mode. All right, there we go. So now this is going to rotate. It's not rotating at the correct position right now. It's rotating from the center, but we're going to make it so that it'll rotate from the very center there. If I just go click right here and go back to the 3D cursor, this joint is going to rotate like this. So it's going to rotate from where that 3D cursor is. And we will do that later when we set up the rigging. So I'm going to change this back to the median point for now. So I now want to create kind of that gear looking object. If I press 3 on the numpad for side view and go into wireframe, you can see there's that kind of like gear object. I want to make that next. So I'm going to hold down the Z button, go back into the solid view, and we can use this object as our base. So I'm going to select this object. We're going to press the tab key to go into edit mode. And then I'm just going to hold down the alt key and select that loop of faces. I am in the face select. So I'm now going to press 1 for front view, and I'm going to press Shift D. Shift D will duplicate the selection. Let's bring this over on the x-axis and stick it there. Now I want to make this its own object, so with this still selected, you can press the P button. Let's click on selection so that now that is its own object. So I can tab into object mode, click on this, and then tab into edit mode. Then I can press 1 again to go to front view, and I'm going to select everything with the A key, and then I can scale it all up, and I'm going to scale it up so that it's the correct size. And you can do this on side view as well by pressing 3 and going into the wireframe and just kind of scaling that. All right, so I now want to go right here to the vertex select. I'm going to hold down the Alt key and just select that loop of vertices. And then I want to give this some thickness, so just make sure you are in the vertex select. I'm going to hold down the Alt key and select that ring of vertices. Let's press 1 on the numpad to go to the front view. I can press E to extrude, and I'm going to extrude this out on the x-axis all the way over here. Place that there. I can then press E to extrude, bring it out on the x-axis, S to scale, and I'm going to scale that down. And then you can see right here that this part is kind of going in. So to get this effect, I'm going to press Control R. Control R will add loop cuts, and then I want to add two loop cuts. So I'm going to scroll my mouse wheel out, and then I can left click and then right click so it stays there in the center. And then I want to add 2 more loop cuts. So I'm going to press Control R. I can scroll my mouse wheel out, and then I can left click and right click so it stays in the center. And then I can press S to scale. We're going to scale these loops down. bring them down, and then I can press S to scale. Let's hit X to scale it out on the X-axis and just make that a bit longer. All right, so that is looking very good. All right, so I'm now going to hold down the Alt key and just select this loop right here. And then I'm going to press 3 on the numpad for side view. And again, let's go into the wireframe. So I can press E to extrude and then S to scale, and we're just going to scale that down. Go back into the solid view. I'm going to navigate right over here to the side. I'm going to press E to extrude, and let's bring this back on the X-axis and just stick it right there. And then let's press E to extrude again. S to scale, we're going to just scale those loops down. We'll make that quite a bit smaller. Again, you can look at the reference image on side view if you want to get it exactly to my one. And then we want to extrude this back out. So let's press 1 for front view. I can press E to extrude. We're going to extrude this out, and let's constrain it to the X-axis. And then I can scale the entire thing down a little bit. And then right here in the center, I just want to fill a face right there. So you can press the F key, and that is going to fill a face. And then I want to add one more little inset in there. So I'm going to press I, and that's going to inset that, and I'm going to scale it down. I want to match it up to the reference. So I'm going to go to the side view, go to the wireframe, just kind of scale that down. All right, let's go back to the solid view. Go to the side here, and I want to extrude it back. So I'll press E to extrude. I'm going to extrude that back in and place that there. All right, tab back into object mode, and you can see we've created this really cool joint object. And then again, we need to recalculate the normals. So back in edit mode, I'm going to press the A key to select everything, and we can press Shift N. That'll recalculate the normals. And then I also have kind of like some big bolts going all around this area. So to make this, I'm going to hold down the Alt key and just select this loop of vertices. And then I'm going to press Shift D to duplicate. Let's press 3 on the numpad for side view, and again, hold down the Z button to go into wireframe. I'm going to scale this down, and I'm just going to stick it right up here. I'm actually going to stick it right here. We'll do the top one first. Stick it right there. I can press the 1 on the numpad for front view and kind of bring this out. Scale it down just a little bit more, and then I can press E to extrude. We'll bring this back on the X-axis, and then I can scale that up there. All right, let's press 3 on the numpad to go to side view, and I want to select the entire bolt. So I'm going to press the L key. That's going to select the linked vertices. And then I will press Shift D to duplicate. Let's bring this down on the Z-axis, and I'm going to stick another bolt right down there. Now I could just manually duplicate these bolts and move them around, or what I could do instead is press the L key with my mouse hovered over that object. That'll select the linked vertices. And then I can press Shift D, that will duplicate them. And then I can press R to rotate, and that's going to rotate them. And it's going to rotate around the center of the selection. Then I can just type in 9, 0, and enter to rotate that over. So we now have those bolts there. And then press L and L with your mouse hovered over those objects. And I want to duplicate them and move them over. So I can press Shift D to duplicate, then press R to rotate, and you could just manually place it, but if you want to type in the specific value, half of 90 is 45. So we can just type in 45 for 45 and enter. All right, hold down the Z button. Let's go back to the solid view and see how that's looking. And I made the mistake of not filling those faces in there. So I'm going to press 1 for the front view. Hold down the Z button, go to the wireframe, and then I can press A to deselect everything. Then I can press B for the box select. I'm just going to drag a box around all these vertices, and I want to bring them out a little bit. So I'll press G to grab, bring them out on the X-axis just to make them a bit longer. And then if I go back to solid view, I can actually just fill faces all at once. So I'm going to press the F key, and that will fill all those faces there all at once. So I can just tab to go back to object mode, and then using the object context menu, I can shade that smooth. So there we go. We now have some cool bolts around that joint object. Now there is just one more thing that I want to do to this object. I want to finish up this part right back here. So to be able to see this better, I'm going to select the body, press H to hide it, and also just select some of these other objects and press H to hide them, just to get them out of the way. And also let's select this object and press H to hide it. And this one here, H to hide it. Okay, I'm going to select this object, tab into edit mode, hold down the Alt key and just select that loop of vertices, and I can scale it down. Then I can press 3 on the numpad, actually 1 on the numpad to go to front view. Let's go into wireframe, hold down the Z button, go to wireframe, and I can press E to extrude. Let's bring this back on the X-axis, and then I can just scale this down. Maybe I'll bring it back a little bit, somewhere about there. And then I'm going to press the F key, and that is going to fill a face right there. Maybe I'll bring it back a little bit, make it a little bit thicker. All right, so I can tab back to object mode. I'm going to select this object and tab into edit mode. Then I'm going to hold down the Alt key and just select that ring of vertices. I can press G to grab. I can bring it over on the X-axis and just stick it right in there. All right, so now it's connecting it to that object. Press the Tab key to go back to object mode, and then I can press Alt H, and that is going to unhide all of the objects that we hid. Let's press Ctrl S again to save. So now we are going to be creating the upper leg object. So just like the other objects, I'm going to press Shift C, so the 3D cursor is in the center. Then I can press Shift A, and we are going to add a cube. I'm going to press Tab to go to edit mode, S to scale, and G to grab. Let's just stick this up here, and then I will tab to go back to object mode. Now I want to copy the modifiers, so select this object, hold down the Shift key, and select the head object. And then again, I can press Ctrl L, and we want to copy the modifiers, so it'll copy the modifiers from this object to this object. So now it has the mirror. So I'm going to tab into edit mode, and then I can press 3 on the numpad to go to side view. I'm going to hold down the Z button and go into the wireframe. And we're going to start to shape this. So I'm going to press S to scale and G to grab, and I'm going to stick this right here. We're just going to get it to the correct size. So the top should be there, and then the bottom is going to be right there. So just scale this and stick that right there. Then I can press A to deselect, B for the box select. I'm just going to box select these vertices. I can press G to grab, and I'm going to bring this over to about there. And then I want to add a loop cut in the center, so I'll press Ctrl R, left click, and then right click to just leave that in the center. I can now press A to deselect, B for the box select. I'm just going to box select these vertices here, and I want to add a bevel. So I'm going to press Control B will add a bevel, and make sure you scroll back so that there is not any smoothing, so there's just one big bevel. And I'm going to bring that up, and I'm just going to bring it to about there, so there is a little gap between here and here. All right, let's press 7 on the numpad to go to top view, and I'll press A to select everything, G to grab, and I'm going to bring this over, and I'm just going to place it right there, and then B for the box select. Click with your mouse wheel to deselect that area, and then G to grab and bring that over on the X-axis and just stick it right there. And then let's navigate right over here, and I'm going to go back into the solid view, and then I want to click right here to go to the face select, and I'm just going to select this face. So I can now press 3 for the side view, and then I can press E to extrude, and I'm going to extrude that out. Place that there, and then I can click right back here to go to the vertex select, A to deselect everything. Let's go into the wireframe, and I can just box select these vertices up here. I can press G to grab, and I'm going to bring this over. So click with your mouse wheel, constrain that to the Y-axis, and just align it with that bevel right there. Now you can see this is round, and so I want to smooth it out. So I'm going to press Control B to add a bevel, and then make it smaller, and I'm going to scroll with my mouse wheel to make that a nice smooth bevel. So just maybe have that about 6, maybe 6 cuts, something like that, and stick it there. All right, go back into the solid view. You can see what we've done. So we've made that edge nice and smooth. And then right here, I want to have a little part which is coming up, which is kind of going to be the inverted shape of this. So I want to add some loop cuts here. So if I press Control R, you can see that it's not adding a loop cut all the way around, and that's because of this bevel we added here. So what I'm going to do is cut through the entire mesh. So I'm going to press 3 for the side view, hold down the Z button, go to wireframe, and then I can press K for the knife tool. So press K, and then I'm going to move my mouse right up here. And then again, I want to press Z, and Z is going to turn on the orientation lock, and also press C, and C is going to turn on the cut through. Then I can click, I'm going to drag down, click there, and then hit enter. So I now want to align this right here. So I'm going to press G to grab, bring this back on the Y-axis and just stick that there. And then I also want to press Control R to add a loop cut here, click and drag over, and we're just going to stick this about there. All right, so now I can navigate up here. I'm gonna go back to the solid view and I wanna go to the face select, and I can just select this face right here. And then I can press 3 for side view. Let's go back into the wireframe view so we can see the background. And I'm going to press E to extrude, bring this up on the Z axis and place it there. And then I can scale this, and we're gonna scale it on the Y axis and make that much smaller and just fit it there to the reference. So now that kind of looks like it can stick inside that little area there where the backpack is. It looks kind of cool in sci-fi, and I do like how that shape looks. And then with this face still selected, I'm going to press 7 for top view. Let's go into wireframe, and I can press I to inset that face. We're going to inset that down, and then go back to the solid view. I'm going to go to the side here, and I can press E to extrude, and we're just going to extrude that back in a little bit. And then let's also do a similar thing right over here. So go to the back of the upper leg, and I'm going to select this face right here, and I can press I to inset that face. We're just going to make it a bit smaller, place it there, and then I can press E to extrude, and we're going to extrude that back. And then right down here, I want to add another cube. So I'm going to select this face right here, press Shift D to duplicate. Let's bring it down on the Z axis. I can scale this down, make it a bit smaller, go to the side. I'm going to bring it over on the Y axis and just stick it in there. And then I can press E to extrude, just extrude that up like that. And then double tap the A key to select everything. And let's recalculate the normals by pressing Shift N. And then I also want to add some details here. So I'm going to inset some details here. So I'm going to select this face, hold down the Shift key, select this face. I'll press 3 on the numpad for the side view, and let's go into wireframe by holding down the Z button. And I want to inset these, so I'm going to press I to inset, but I want to hit the I key twice, and that way it's going to inset them individually. I'm going to bring them down and just fit the reference. Let's go back to the solid view. I'm going to navigate to the side, and I can press E to extrude. Just push that in a little bit. All right, and then right here, I want this part to be extruded out and connect to this object. So I'm gonna select this face, hold down the Shift key, select this face. I can press 3 for the side view, and then hold down the Z button, go into wireframe, and I'm going to press E to extrude, and I'm going to extrude this out. Bring it to about there. Then I'm going to go to the vertex select by clicking right here, and then press the A key to deselect everything. And then right down here, I'll use the box select to box select those vertices. I'm going to bring them up on the Z axis and just fit the reference there. And then also right here, I want to add a loop cut in here. So I'm going to press Control R, add the loop cut, and just drop it right about there. I can deselect everything. B for the box select. We're going to box select that corner, and I can press G to grab, bring it down on the Z axis, and stick that there. I can also press 7 on the numpad to go to top view, and then use the box select to box select all of those vertices, so the ones up here and the ones down here. And I'm going to go to top view, and I'm going to extrude them out, and extrude them out about that far. And then I want to press E to extrude and extrude them out again and bring them all the way inside that object. And then I just want to select this face and kind of bring it back. So press A to deselect, use the box select. I'm just going to box select these vertices here. So you can see there are these vertices here on this side. And then on the top view, I can press G to grab. We're going to bring these back on the X-axis and stick that there. And why I'm doing that is because if these were out like this, how they were, there's just like this big gap here, and I don't want that. So I'm going to bring them back on the X-axis and just stick them inside there, just like that. All right, and then let's navigate to the bottom, and I want to add some little details right here. So go to the face select. I'm just going to select one of these faces. I'll press Shift D to duplicate, and let's bring this back, and then I can scale the whole thing down a little bit, and I can also scale it on the Y-axis to make it a bit thicker. All right, I'll press period on the numpad to zoom into it, maybe bring it down a little bit more. So I can press E to extrude. We're going to extrude that back up there, and then I can select this face, and I'm going to scale this face down on the X-axis, and I'm just going to make that smaller, so right about there. And then hover your mouse over the object and press L. That will select the linked vertices. Let's bring these over a little bit, and then I can press 3 for side view, and I'm going to actually bring this even farther, and then I can press Shift D to duplicate, click with your mouse wheel and drop one there, and then Shift D to duplicate, click with your mouse wheel, drop another one there, maybe make it a little bit farther, and then Shift D to duplicate, click with your mouse wheel, constrain it to the Y, and then stick that right there. All right, back into solid mode, you can see what we've created. So we've just created like some little sci-fi pieces right there, kind of like some vents or something. Double tap the A key to select everything, and I can press Shift N to recalculate the normals. And then I want to do a similar thing like I did here, but I want to do it up here. So I'm going to select this face, navigate up here, and press period on the numpad to zoom over to it. I'm going to press Shift D and then Z, bring it up on the Z axis, and I can scale the whole thing down, and I can bring it over on the Y axis and just stick it right there. I can press 7 on the numpad for top view. Let's go into the wireframe so I can preview that and just kind of fit it to the reference. And then I'm going to click right here to go to the edge select, and I can just select this edge. I can press E to extrude. Let's bring it back on the Y axis, place it there, and then I can scale that down. And then let's hold down the Z button, go back into the solid view. And I just want to go to the face select. So click on the face select. I can select this face, hold down the shift key, select this face, and I can press E to extrude. We're going to extrude that all down. And I think I will just select both of these faces and bring them down a little bit. All right, and then just hover your mouse over the object and press L. That'll select the linked vertices. And I can press Shift D to duplicate. Let's bring this over just like that. Press 7 on the numpad for top view. I can go into the wireframe, and I'm just going to fit that to the reference. All right, and then let's go back to the vertex select. I can deselect everything with A. I'm going to press B for the box select and just box select those vertices, and G to grab, and we're going to bring them back on the Y axis. And then I can press E to extrude, click with your mouse wheel, bring it over on the Y axis, and then I can scale this on the X axis and just make that smaller. All right, there we go. So I can go back into the solid view, and you can see now we have some pretty cool sci-fi details there. I'm going to select everything with the A key, and then I will press Shift N to recalculate the normals. I'll press the Tab key to go back to object mode, and then shade this smooth with the object context menu in object mode. All right, so we are almost done with this piece, but I do want to add some little bolts or some little nuts or screws, just like with all the other objects. So I'm going to select one of these objects. I'll just select this object here, the backpack. I'll press the Tab key to go into edit mode, and then making sure everything is deselected. And I'm going to zoom in here, and then I can press the L key to select the linked vertices. I can press Shift D to duplicate. Let's bring this here, and then I want to separate it. So I'm going to press the P key, and I'm going to separate by selection. I'm going to tab to go back to object mode. I can select this object, and then I want to join it with this object. So I'm going to hold down the shift key, select this object, and I can press Control J, and that will join them together. And then press tab to go into edit mode, and then hover your mouse over the object and press L. And then we can use that same snapping feature. So click right here, that's going to turn on the snapping, and then I can just kind of snap this around. So I'll press G to grab, and I'm going to stick this right down there, and then Shift D to duplicate this. Let's put it there, and I'm just going to continue to press Shift D, and then move my mouse over and press G to grab and stick them into some other areas. So we'll put one there. Let's duplicate this one and put another one up there, and then duplicate it again. We're going to put one there, and let's duplicate it again and put another one there. And I can also duplicate this and put one there. And then on the back side, I'm going to put them on pretty much the same areas. So Shift D to duplicate, we'll put one there. Duplicate that, and we're going to put another one there, and I can duplicate this and put another one right there, and duplicate this. Let's put another one right up there, and it's a little bit hard to see, so I think I'll just kind of move up here, duplicate this, put another one here. If you wanted to, you could go into object mode and just hide this object, but I'm just going to add one more. So Shift D to duplicate and stick one there. Of course, if you don't want to, you don't have to add the bolts back here because they are kind of hard to see. All right, let's go back into object mode and press Control S to save. And this is it for part 4 of the tutorial series. So the upper legs are now finished. So in the next part, in part 5, we are going to be modeling some joints right here. We're going to be using these joints, kind of duplicating them, putting them here. And then we are also going to be modeling the lower legs, and we'll also be modeling like the ankles and the feet. So by the end of the next part, all of the modeling will be finished. So again, thank you so much for watching. I hope you've been enjoying this so far, and I hope you've been able to easily follow along, and I hope you've been learning a lot as well. And as I mentioned before, if you'd like to help support what I create, then checking out my Gumroad store and and Patreon page are great ways to help support me and this channel. So when part 5 is released, it'll be right up there on the end screen and the link in the description. But thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in part 5.